Hi, it's Andy.
Hi, it's Dave.
Hi, it's Kirk.
Okay, Kirk, do you want to explain what we're doing today on today's album review? As I can't breathe properly at the moment.
Yeah, okay, I'll get time for you to lead on this one. So the new album from Alter Bridge called Pawns and Kings, which came out, I believe, a couple of weeks ago. One of the most anticipated rock records, if not the most anticipated rock records of this year. One of the biggest sellers in the industry. And it's not something perhaps that me and Andy would go out of a way to listen to. But I'm pleased you asked us about this one. So let's start with you, Andy. What did you think of this album from Alter Bridge?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Kirk. I know the name. As far as I was aware, they're sort of be classed as hard rock, but I was really pleasantly surprised. I mean, as I've heard the name, it's cited by sort of songwriters from three of my favourite Cambridgeshire rock bands. I'm going to name check them now: All to the Sky, Planet Fatale, and The Hot 1-2. Often, when you sort of read their bios, you know they're mentioned as influences and whatever. You know, this particular band. And I was really pleasantly surprised. You know, I thought it was just going to be like a hard rock album, you know, sort of AC/DC or whatever. But I was really surprised at how heavy it was. You know, from the opening track, I really, really like it. I was surprised that the vocals were as melodic as they were and as powerful and as good as they were. You know, it didn't almost match the heaviness of the music. I mean, from certainly the opening song. I mean, there are some sort of standard classic rock songs throughout, but I really did enjoy it. Going back to sort of connections to the Cambridgeshire bands, the intro to Silver Tongue, which is third track, is very, very reminiscent of a Planet Fatale song called Fight Club, which they actually wrote probably 3 years ago. I mean, there's Iron Maiden influences in the vocals from the guy. I know we discussed it on the earlier this week on one of the new album. Sorry, the reaction video that David brought to us our attention. But yeah, very Iron Maiden on Fable of the Silent. But yeah, I was really pleasantly surprised. I enjoyed it. I'm definitely going to check this band out. Enjoyed the reaction video we done from one of their earlier tracks, one of their live favourites. So I'll be following this band. Yeah, I was really, really impressed. Massive surprise. I just thought it was going to be standard rock, but they are exceptionally heavy, surprisingly heavy. Vocalist is incredible. Yeah.
Awesome.
Band to follow. Really, really liked it.
Yeah, I'm pleased that you just mentioned at the end that this is really heavy in terms of certainly the guitar riffs. It's like when people talk about grunge, and the one band that stands out as a metal band in that scene is Alice in Chains. You put all those greats on, and Alice in Chains are just so heavy compared to the others, with probably the exception of Soundgarden. And I think what I've realized with Alter Bridge, and what took me by surprise, is they land somewhere between the American prog metal band Fate's Warning and Soundgarden. And the riffs, I imagine, are in C sharp or drop C, whatever you want to call it. The grooves to these riffs, these are chunky, these are heavy, these are imaginative. Mark Tremonti, what a guitar player. I also agree with you, Andy. Sometimes I don't think the vocals suit how heavy these songs are. And that's not because he's lacking in power, but he has that really gravel-throated blues voice, which doesn't always help. The first 4 tracks on this album, I'm just listening to a metal album. Really impressive. You can even hear Gojira in there.
I mean, you could put death metal vocals over those first couple of tracks, and it would work.
Definitely.
It works for this particular band, but you're just taken aback as a new listener.
Yeah,
you know, I was surprised at how heavy and how metal the music was, and then you're sort of blown away again by these fantastic vocals, and you think, well, is it going to work? And it does, but it would also work if they sort of passed him over for somebody more traditional death metal vocals and sort of moved in a different direction. But as a band, as an outfit, yeah, it all works.
Yeah, I think the vocalist Miles Kennedy, I've heard a couple of the tracks before, Dave, and never really given it much time. He is an excellent singer. However, did you say that sometimes you can tell the songs he's written and the ones Tremonti have written?
I believe so. So one of the things I've done since listening to this album is I went back and started listening to some Tremonti, and then I started listening to some Miles Kennedy stuff, and they both have very distinctive playing styles, and they are very, very different. So when they come together, you can slightly hear I find that the heavier riff laden tracks tend to be more Tremonti. The ones that are more open with more chord orientated tend to be Miles Kennedy. And that's not to say that Miles Kennedy is not a massive riff master, because he is. He's a great guitar player. He does a lot of the solos as well on some of the tracks. So a lot of the times you'll hear solos where there'll be two solos in a song. They'll usually be split between Kennedy and Tremonti will both take the parts up, take turns. But yeah, I can usually listen to the songs on the album and go, yeah, that was something that Miles Kennedy brought to the table and then was worked on by the band. And Tremonti put his bit of a stamp on it. And then you can hear the real if it's a real riff-laden track, you can really hear it from Tremonti sort of playing. And if you listen to some of Tremonti's solo work, you can hear how that's been influenced into the Alter Bridge stuff.
Yeah, see on here, I think the album, there is a flaw to this album. The first 4 tracks, chunky, metal, progressive tendencies, great choruses, really imaginative as well, the way that they've structured them, not just verse, bridge, chorus. And then what the hell are they doing at track number 5, Stay? Now, I assume Miles Kennedy wrote that. That is the type of major key shit rock music that I could do without. Do you know what it reminds me of? Do you remember that band from 2001 where they called Train? The one-hit wonders.
Oh, Train, yeah.
There was a song called Raindrops of Jupiter. Oh, fucking hell.
They were awful.
This song is as bad as that. And I'm just thinking, okay, maybe it's a one-off. And then they follow it up with another song called Holiday. And this is like a, shall we say, a more listenable version of Nickelback. I'm just thinking, what has happened? You've squandered the momentum.
See, I actually liked Holiday. I didn't mind that track.
Did you?
I actually liked that one.
He does rock out, but I just cannot stand the vocals on that. It's just written for mainstream rock radio, and I'm sure Alter Bridge in America. What do the Americans call it pejoratively? Butt rock, because you have these Midwest radio stations that play nothing but rock, and it's become a bit of a meme, hasn't it? So they really do need that song, Fable of the Silent Sun, to get back on track, which to me is a prog metal masterpiece. Really fantastic guitar
player.
player.
Track.
Yeah. And then
can you hear the Iron Maiden sort of references? The vocals on that one.
Well, do you know what? It wasn't Iron Maiden. Do you know what I heard?
Celtic Frost.
No, hey, you mentioned it, not me. Right? There is a deliberate reference to Tornado of Souls by Megadeth.
Okay.
In the solo, but also the riff leading up to it. So do you know, you heard Iron Maiden? To me, I was like, Tremonti obviously is giving an Easter egg to the listeners. The people are on the heavier end of the spectrum. To me, that was a homage to Megadeth. There's only one more song at the end, which I think is pure filler, and that is Season of Promise. Again, just that awful Pearl Jam light type major key rock music that is just unlistenable to me. I've heard it so many times. It's got nothing to it, but hey, they end it really well. Last Man Standing, and then the title track, back to that epic technical stadium rock. Is that even a thing? You know, yes, they're going to be playing arenas with this music, but the level of musicianship is absolutely fantastic. And, you know, I would have my fists in the air for that last song near the end. That is how you keep an audience entertained. So, Dave, you're the fan of Alter Bridge.
Okay.
That you were not impressed by this record.
It's not that I wasn't impressed, and I have to be careful about how I say this, because I did a reaction video for Sin by Sin, or Sin for Sin, and I made a few comments, and the Alter Bridge fans kind of called me out on that, which is fair enough because I appreciate their opinions. But for me, I think every time that someone brings out a new album, I'm always after what's the next stage. I'm looking for significant progression. I'm looking for something to make me stand up and go, oh, that's different, that's something new. So I was one of these people that when like Metallica went off and did Load and Reload, I actually liked that because it was something different. They were exploring their creative thing. they weren't just trying to knock out the next Master of Puppets, because you've already got Master of Puppets. Why would you need 4 more albums that sound like Master of Puppets? You've got that album. So I like it when bands take more risks and they go down different routes and they explore different avenues. I find people putting out the same album they did before and just calling it, whacking a different label on it, it's not really for me. So when I listened to this, I didn't get any of that kind of wow factor of this is something new, this is something different. They've taken it to the next level with Alter Bridge. They've given us something new to take on. It felt like a continuation. And that's not a bad thing. In hindsight, having gone back and listened to the album again before we did this, because it's been a while since we first listened to the album, it's better for me on the second and third listening, because I haven't gone into it with that mindset of where's the changes. I was always looking, every song I was listening to, I was like, yeah, it sounds like All Bridge. What's new? What are you going to give me something different? Yeah, Tremonti is doing an amazing solo, but he did that on the last few albums. Where's that magic moment? And I got called out on the reaction video because I compared something about Blackbird, and they went, they're never going to be able to do another Blackbird, so stop looking for it, accept what they're putting out and enjoy it. And I was like, do you know what? It's a fair point to say, enjoy the moment that they're giving you. For me, there were 4 good songs that I really liked on the album, which is This Is War, Dead Among the Living, Holiday, and Fable of the Silent Sun. So I think we all picked up on Fable of the Silent Sun as a great track.
That's a beast of a track, that, isn't it? And as you said, this isn't rock music. This is metal to me, progressive metal. I
mean, what I liked about it, the album felt very theatrical the whole way through. It felt like it wasn't just a collection of just songs. It was they were trying to tell stories the whole way through. So there was a lot of showmanship going on in the actual album. It felt like there was a grand design about the whole album. So again, it was like they were trying to tell a bigger picture than just a collection of songs. I thought it showcased off both Miles and Mark's individual styles. I do find they are very distinctive on their own. And again, initially when I thought about this, when I wrote this comment, I was like, I think I prefer them separately. But then when I went and listened to them, they are so distinctive compared to Alter Bridge that actually it is quite a good pairing. I kind of had to go back and review listening to these other albums. So actually, I'm going to strike that comment. That actually, I don't think they are better on their own. I think they've got their own separate styles. And we are going to look at some Tremonti in our next bunch of reaction videos, which I thought would be kind of cool to go and look at. I thought there were some really good vibes, like big grandiose vibes on Last Man Standing, which I liked.
Did you pick up on the symphonic metal elements in the
Not really.
Track?
Not massively.
I wasn't expecting that. You had these really dramatic orchestral hits accenting, the power chords.
They do elements like that on like some of their things like Fortress, which was another previous album, which was very cool. Blackbird album. So when you go back through the discography, they've got elements of that already. So it wasn't anything that caught me off guard because I was kind of expecting it. My only question now, I kind of put a question mark by it, was growth. I don't know if I've seen any significant growth or change as a band. Was it putting an album out for the sake of putting an album? And that's what I'd sometimes question with bands when they're up to their 7th album, they're putting another set of songs out. What's the reason of putting those songs out? Because you can't play if you've got an hour and a half show and you've got 6 albums already, there's only so many songs you're going to be able to fit in off those 6 albums. So you put a 7th one out. If there's nothing significantly massively different to the previous 6 albums, what was the purpose of it? And I'm going to get destroyed by all Bridge fans for saying that, but it's not going to be an album that's going to sit on my playlist because there isn't enough on it to make me to knock other things off. And what's interesting, if you look at what's on my playlist, there's not any band has more than 1 album on my playlist. So I like to have 50 to 100 bands on there, each with 1 album, because I pick 1 album. I'm like, that's what I'm going to listen to off them. I don't want to hear 30 songs by the same band. And that's because I like to hear lots of different styles. And I kind of like that I like to see that progressive element of each band. It's a personal thing.
Yeah, Andy, so you were pleasantly surprised. What were the weak moments on this album, in your opinion?
I think we touched on it. I think there's definitely some fillers on there. I mean, I just like to go back to sort of Davey's point about progression of it. I'm quite happy for a band. if it ain't broke, why fix it kind of formula. You know, it didn't do sort of Bolt, Thrower, or Obituary any harm. You know what you're getting when they release something new. And you know, from a personal point of view, when bands try to extend themselves too much and go completely outside their brief, it alienates a lot of fans. You know, I can think of a couple of examples of bands where I thought, oh no, why have you done that?
Anathema.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Example.
You know, Theatre of Tragedy, My Dying Bride. But you know, a lot of the times, whether it's sort of fan feedback or you know they just realise, hang on, let's go back to what we do best. They sort of come back to form and get back on track. But I mean, as an Alter Bridge fan, David, you're obviously expecting them to progress and change from the previous albums. Whereas if I was a fan, you know, if their previous albums are similar to this, I'm all over it. You know, I really enjoyed the Blackbird video reaction we done a few days ago, and as I said, I'm gonna check these guys out.
I think I actually would agree with what you're saying, Andy. I think I'm very much the minority in this, and I think pretty much all Alter Bridge fans are going to be saying how much of a great album this is because that's what they want. And most people really like their band to be this band that plays a certain style. And that's why they got into it. They don't want massive amounts of changes on them. They like to see some embellishments. They like to see some additional thinking outside the box occasionally, but they like people to stick within their styles. Because I think I just like to change styles of music quite a lot, rather than listen to a lot of the same stuff. Because I occasionally will go back to nostalgic albums, but then I like to move forward with different bands. And so like we've talked about Megadeth and people like Machine Head and stuff like that. I will find one or two albums from these bands, and whenever they bring out a new album, I'm not really that interested in it. So they'll bring out a new one, I'll be like, yeah, it sounds like old Megadeth, or it sounds like older Machine Head. I've got the old Machine Head, I don't really need the new stuff. I'm already invested in the old stuff, but that's very much me. And that's my personal stuff, but I can completely appreciate what's gone into these albums, so I can appreciate what they've done in Alter Bridge. If we were to talk about the new Megadeth, actually we have talked about the new Megadeth album, so we'll leave that where that is. But I think a good example of what Andy was talking about with a band going in the wrong different direction was Machine Head, and how that alienated a lot of people where they went off into the Burning Red and Supercharger.
Including me.
But those were albums that I actually liked because they sounded like they were trying something new. I did love it when they went and did Imperium. I loved that track, and I loved The Blackening. That was a great album. After The Blackening, I started to lose interest again in them because it didn't feel like they were doing much more to progress. Locust, I wasn't really interested. Because
you put Alter Bridge on the same festival bill as Machine Head then? You know, because you've mentioned Machine Head, because Andy, the riffs are heavy, aren't they?
They've been on it. I mean, they get put more on bills like with Nightwish and some more symphonic stadium rock. So they go to the more stadium rockers elements, but they have been on those sort of bills, usually big festival ones.
Guns N' Roses would be an ideal tour that they would be on.
Yeah.
You know, I assume that Axel, whatever he's doing, I think Slash is in the band again now, and they'll be doing a mega tour soon. So you probably expect to see Alter Bridge on that.
It's like now they're back out on stadium tour at the moment supporting this album, and it's Hailstorm that's doing the support. So, and Hailstorm have just come off their own headline and stadium tour themselves, so they're now going into the support role underneath Alter Bridge. So that's the next level for them to go up. But I think, from the three of us, I think we've all agreed it's a good album, even if I didn't say it as much. I still would say it's a good album.
Are we giving
just one last point, guys, about sort of bands progressing? I think when I've say My Dying Bride's example, Theatre of Tragedy example, I do like the albums that they branch onto a slightly different direction. But I almost think I wish it wasn't a Theatre of Tragedy album or My Dying Bride album, maybe like a side project,
right? Okay,
with the majority of the members, those bands I've just cited, they both kind of went a little bit experimental, a little bit industrial at times, and it was very different from their proven track record of material. But I did like them. I'd like them a lot. But I thought I don't want it to be a My Dying Bride album. I don't want it to be a Theatre of Tragedy album. I want them to replicate Aegis. I want them to replicate.
Right. Okay.
Turn Loose the Swans or whatever. Do you know what I mean? Let's not go into the arena of experimental electronica, which they both did, but
I think
they're
it's
good albums.
First
Well, I think-
example of that is Paradise Lost. Man, it was so
Another one, yes, exactly. Yeah.
so depressing following that band from 1998 to 2005. It's like if you're a Nottingham Forest or Leeds United supporter over the last 20 years and you've had to watch your team in the Championship, finally they're in the Premiership. And the Smashing Pumpkins were like that as well. They're another band. It's like, I adore the follow-up to Melancholy Infinite Sadness, but it's not a Smashing Pumpkins album.
No.
Like
I think
that one, but
I would say the worry though is whenever you see a band that does a change on an album, the first thing that goes into your head is how far is it going to go? How much more change is going to happen?
You have concerns, don't you?
You start worrying that they're going in a completely different direction because you don't mind a bit of change as long as they keep that core element that was there, the bit that got you into the band. The problem is if you got into the band, which I've done on a couple of occasions, which actually Paradise Lost was a great example of it. So I got into Paradise Lost on Draconian Times and then went back and listened to, what was it, Icon?
yeah, Gothic and shit.
And Gothic, and I'm like, what the fuck is this shit? I'm like, hell, this doesn't sound like Draconian Times. What the hell?
Really extreme, isn't it?
I was like,
Gothic,
this is not, I'm not into this. And I couldn't listen to the early stuff. I only liked it from Draconian Times. But then weirdly, after Draconian Times, I didn't like anything that came after that because I was like, what the fuck is this shit you're doing?
Do you know?
That was a moment in time I liked.
There are examples, right? There are a few bands though who've done this and moved away from what the fans want, and no one criticizes the music. Opeth and Mastodon. It's clear that the last three albums from those bands, it is absolutely clear to me that people would rather that they go back to the heavier stuff. Yet they still get glowing reviews for these records. Is it me, or does nobody want to talk about this? I just think these bands, even Gojira, could be the next to do this, where everyone's just like, great band, whatever they put out, we're going to worship it, and they're still at the forefront of contemporary metal. And I honestly don't know if you can say that about Opeth and Mastodon now. Sorry, we're meant to be talking about Ultra.
Well, maybe that's a conversation for another.
I'll say we've inadvertently gone into a David discussion point.
We have
On
yes.
a chat, haven't we? Yeah.
Maybe
Sorry,
for another video.
let's bring it back.
So I'm assuming 3 thumbs up for this album.
Despite track 5 and 6,
Absolutely.
it's the thumbs up.
So thumbs up from the ADK for Alter Bridge. Now, if you like this video, please do subscribe to our channel. Please do like, please do share, and as I said, please do subscribe. Click that bell icon, very important to stay notified. And we will see you on another video sometime very soon. Take care.